In the middle of a group photo, she sneered. "Move out of the picture. Your face is ruining the aesthetic." I stepped out of frame and kept walking, got in my car, and drove away without looking back. Later that night, one of her friends texted me. "She's still crying." Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. I didn't realize I was a ghost until I looked at her Instagram grid. We had been together for 3 years, living together for 2. If you scrolled back to 2023, I was there. There were selfies of us hiking, blurry photos of us eating tacos on a Tuesday, and captions that actually used my name. Mark. Mark made me soup. Mark fixed the sink. Date night with Mark. But if you scrolled up to the last 6 months, I had vanished. The transition was subtle at first. My face was replaced by her hand holding a latte. Then it was just her outfit. Then it was her, solo, posing in front of locations I had driven us to, eating dinners I had paid for, wearing jewelry I had bought for her birthday. The captions changed, too. Gone was date night with Mark, and in its place was the vague, aspirational word salad of the wannabe influencer. Chasing sunsets, manifesting abundance, soft life era. I wasn't her boyfriend anymore. I was her production crew. I paid the rent on our 2-bedroom apartment in the city, which she insisted we needed for the natural light. I paid the lease on the Audi she refused to drive because parallel parking gave her anxiety. I paid for the trips, the dinners, and the investments in her personal brand. In return, I was allowed to exist in the background, provided I didn't make too much noise or clutter up the frame of her daily vlog. Then came Julian. Elena met Julian at a content creator mixer I had encouraged her to go to because I thought it would be good for her to make friends. She came home glowing. Julian was a visionary. Julian understood the aesthetic. Julian was a photographer who shot exclusively on film because digital was too sterile. Julian was also unemployed, sleeping on a friend's couch, and had never offered to pay for a drink in his life. The first time I met him, he looked at me like I was a member of the catering staff. He was wearing oversized linen pants and enough silver rings to set off a metal detector. We were at a rooftop bar. My treat, of course. "So, Mark," Julian said, sipping the $18 craft cocktail I'd just put on my tab. "Elena says you work in logistics?" "Supply chain management," I said. He smirked, a little condescending tilt of the head. "Right. Corporate. Very stable. That's good. Elena needs stability so she can fly." Elena giggled. She actually giggled. She squeezed his arm, not mine. "He's so poetic, isn't he?" Mark is very left-brained. He doesn't really get the artistic side of things. I took a sip of my beer. "I get that the artistic side of things costs money, Elena. Someone has to fund the flight." The air dropped out of the conversation. Elena shot me a look of pure venom. The kind that says, "Don't you dare embarrass me in front of the cool kid. Don't be gross about money, Mark," she snapped. It's such low vibration energy. That was the dynamic. I was the wallet, the driver, and the safety net. Julian was the muse and the validation. Over the next few weeks, Julian started being everywhere. He was at our apartment when I got home from work, brainstorming content with her. He was in the passenger seat of my car while I drove them to shoot locations on weekends. I became the third wheel in my own relationship. I tried to bring it up. I told her I felt disrespected. I told her I felt like an ATM with a pulse. She twisted it immediately. She told me I was insecure and jealous of her growth. She said Julian was gay, he wasn't, or asexual, he wasn't, or just like a brother, he definitely wasn't. She told me that if I loved her, I would support her dreams, and part of that dream was looking the part. "You have to dress for the life you want, Mark," she told me once, criticizing my polo shirt and jeans. "And right now, you're dressing for a life of mediocrity." I swallowed it. I swallowed it because I loved the version of her I met 3 years ago, and I kept hoping that girl was still in there, just buried under a pile of filters and hashtags. I thought if I just supported her enough, if she finally made it, she'd relax, and we'd go back to normal. I was an idiot. The breaking point didn't happen in a scream. It happened on a Saturday in mid-July. Elena had been talking about the Solstice White Party for a month. It was an exclusive, invite-only event at a vineyard about 60 miles outside the city. It was the event of the summer. Everyone was going to be there, local influencers, brand reps, people she needed to impress. I need you to drive, she told me 3 days before. I want a drink, and Julian's license is suspended. Why is Julian coming? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Because he's shooting the content, Mark. God, why do you have to make everything a fight? Do you want to come or not? I should have said no. I should have stayed home, ordered a pizza, and changed the locks. But I wanted to see it. I think, subconsciously, I wanted to see how far she would push it. I wanted to see if there was any limit to the disrespect. I'll drive, I said. The day of the party, the temperature was 90 degrees. I wore a crisp white linen button-down and tailored beige chinos, exactly the dress code she had specified. I thought I looked good. When I walked into the living room, Elena and Julian were already there. They looked like they belonged on a magazine cover. She was in a flowing, backless white silk dress that probably cost more than my first car. Julian was wearing a white mesh shirt and wide-leg trousers that dragged on the floor. Elena looked me up and down. Her lip curled. "You're wearing that?" she asked. "It's white linen. Like you said. It looks corporate," Julian chimed in, adjusting his sunglasses indoors. "It's giving IT guy at a company retreat." Elena sighed, a heavy, dramatic exhale. "Whatever. We're late. Let's just go. But Mark, please try not to stand directly next to me when we get there until I check the lighting. I don't want to throw off the vibe." I didn't say a word. I grabbed the keys to the Audi. I carried her bag. I carried Julian's camera equipment bag because it was too heavy for him. The drive was an hour of torture. They sat in the back. I was the chauffeur. They laughed about inside jokes, gossiped about people I didn't know, and critiqued the Instagram feeds of their friends. Not once did Elena ask me how my week was. Not once did she touch my shoulder or look at me in the rearview mirror with anything other than impatience. We arrived at the vineyard. It was beautiful. Rolling hills, white tents, expensive cars lining the gravel drive. I parked the car. I got out and opened the door for her. She didn't say thank you. She stepped out, adjusted her dress, and immediately turned to Julian. "The light is perfect right now," she said, grabbing Julian's arm. "Let's go to the main entrance before it gets crowded." They walked ahead. I followed, holding her purse and Julian's backup lens. We made our way to the step and repeat, a massive floral wall set up specifically for photos. There was a line of people waiting. When it was our turn, Elena handed her phone to the professional photographer hired for the event. "Okay, Julian, get in here," she squealed. Julian slid in next to her. They posed. Blue steel, pouty lips, laughing candidly at nothing. Flash, flash, flash. Then, the photographer looked at me. "Does the gentleman want to join?" Elena hesitated. I saw the calculation in her eyes. She looked at Julian, then at me. "Sure," she said, her voice tight. "Come on, Mark." I stepped in. I stood next to her, putting my arm around her waist. The waist of the woman I had lived with for 2 years, the woman whose rent I paid. I smiled. Elena stiffened. She leaned away from me, towards Julian. The photographer raised the camera. "Wait," Elena said, her voice sharp. She held up a hand. She turned to me. There was no warmth in her eyes. No love. Just cold, filtered vanity. "Mark, can you actually move?" she said, loud enough for the 10 people in line behind us to hear. "You're crowding the shot." "I'm just standing next to you," I said calmly. She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, and it looks cluttered. The aesthetic is ethereal, and you look stiff. Just move out of the picture. Your face is ruining the aesthetic. Just stand behind the camera, okay? You can hold my purse." Julian snickered. A hand covered his mouth, but I saw the smile. The people in line shifted uncomfortably. I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the heavy makeup settling into the lines of her face. I saw the desperation to be liked by strangers. I saw the absolute hollowness of a woman who would humiliate her partner for 40 likes on an app. "You want me out of the picture?" I asked. My voice was steady. "Yes, Mark. God. Just go." She waved her hand at me, a shooing motion, like I was a stray dog. Something inside me clicked. It wasn't anger. It was the sound of a heavy chain finally snapping. "Okay," I said. I stepped out of the frame. "Finally," she muttered, turning back to the camera and putting on her fake smile. "Okay, Julian, ready?" I didn't go behind the camera. I didn't take her purse. I set the bag down on the grass next to the photographer's foot, and I just kept walking. I walked through the garden, past the bubbling fountains and the tables set with expensive crystal. I didn't run. I didn't stomp. I walked with the brisk, purposeful stride of a man who had realized he was at the wrong meeting. I reached the valet stand at the front of the estate. The kid behind the podium looked up, surprised. The party had barely started. Nobody was leaving yet. "Leaving so soon, sir?" he asked, taking my ticket. "Yeah," I said, handing him a $20 bill. "Emergency. Can you get it quick?" He jogged off. I stood there, checking my pockets. Wallet, phone, keys to the apartment. I had everything that mattered. 2 minutes later, my Audi pulled up. I slid into the driver's seat. The leather was still warm. I adjusted the mirror. In the reflection, I could see the distant white tints of the party. I imagined Elena still standing there, smiling for the camera, tilting her chin down, unaware that her ride home, and her bankroll, was currently putting the car in drive. I pulled out onto the main road. The moment the tires hit the asphalt, I waited for the wave of sadness. I waited for the heartbreak. I waited for the panic of, "Oh my God, I just left my girlfriend at a winery." But it didn't come. Instead, I felt a physical sensation in my chest that I hadn't felt in 2 years. It was like a heavy, wet wool coat had been lifted off my shoulders. I took a deep breath. The air conditioning blasted cold, clean air into my face. I turned on the radio. Not the top 40 pop station Elena insisted on listening to because it keeps the energy up. I put on a podcast about economics. It was dry, boring, and absolutely silent about vibes. It was paradise. I was 40 minutes into the drive, cruising down the highway, when my phone buzzed against the center console. Then it buzzed again. Then a third time. I glanced at the screen. 3 missed calls. Elena, 1 text message. Elena, I didn't answer. I didn't even unlock the phone. I knew exactly what was happening. The photo shoot was over. They had moved to the bar. She had reached for her clutch to buy a round of drinks for her new friends. Or maybe she had just realized I wasn't holding her purse anymore. I kept driving. 10 minutes later, the texts escalated. "Elena, where are you? Elena, stop joking around, come back. Julian needs to charge his camera. Elena, Mark, seriously, you're embarrassing me. Where did you go?" I pulled into a rest stop about 10 miles from the city limits. I needed gas, and I needed to handle the logistics. I parked the car and finally picked up the phone. There were now 12 texts. The tone had shifted from annoyance to panic. Then came the text from Qley. Qley was Elena's bestie of the month. She was the one who enabled everything, always whispering in Elena's ear that she deserved more, that she was a star. "Qley, where the hell are you? Elena is crying. You ruined the whole vibe. Come back and pick us up right now." I stared at the words. Elena is crying. A week ago, that sentence would have made me turn the car around. I would have apologized. I would have begged for forgiveness. I would have driven back at 90 miles per hour to dry her tears. But today, I read it like a supply chain report. Why is she crying? She wasn't crying because she missed me. She had just told me my face ruined her aesthetic. She wasn't crying because she was worried about my safety. She hadn't called to ask if I crashed. She was crying because she was 60 miles away from home in a remote vineyard. Uber surged to about $180 for that distance on a Saturday night. She didn't have a car. Julian didn't drive. And most importantly, I realized with a dark, grim satisfaction, she didn't have any money. I had given her a supplementary credit card on my Amex account for emergencies. She used it for Sephora and brunch. That card was in the purse I had left on the grass. I opened my banking app. Status, active. Recent pending charge, $0. I tapped the Manage Cards tab. I selected Elena Supplementary. Freeze card? Yes. Report lost/stolen? Yes. Reason, user no longer authorized. The card was dead. I went back to Qley's text. I typed my reply slowly, making sure every word was accurate. Me. She told me I was ruining the picture. So I removed myself from the picture. I'm almost home. Tell Julian to call an Uber. I'm sure he has the funds. I hit send. Then, I did something I should have done months ago. I went to my contact list. Elena, block caller. Qley, block caller. Julian, block caller. I put the phone down, filled the tank with premium gas, and bought a black coffee. When I got back to the apartment, the silence was beautiful. It was 7 p.m. If they managed to get a ride, it would take them at least 90 minutes to get back, probably longer if they had to wait for a car that would accept a ride that long. I didn't sit down. I went straight to the closet. I didn't burn her clothes. I didn't cut them up. That's dramatic, and I was done with drama. I grabbed 3 boxes of heavy-duty trash bags from under the sink. I went into the bedroom. I swept her skincare products off the vanity into a bag. I pulled her clothes off the hangers, the silk dresses, the aesthetic neutrals, the designer coats I had bought her, and stuffed them into bags. Shoes went into a separate bag. I worked efficiently. Bedroom, bathroom, living room. I took down the vision board she had put up in the hallway. I took down the ring light she left set up in the corner of the living room. By 8:30 p.m., there were 12 large black trash bags sitting in the hallway outside our apartment door. I didn't put them in the dumpster. I wasn't throwing them away. I was just evicting them. I went to the router. I held down the reset button. New network name. 404_ not found new password. Complex string only I knew. I sat down on the couch. The apartment looked bigger. It looked cleaner. It looked like my apartment again. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from my bank app. Transaction declined. Uber Technologies. Amount, $192.50. Card ending in 4002. I smiled. Transaction declined. Uber Technologies. Amount, $192.50. Card ending in 4002. She was trying. She was desperate. Then, a frantic notification from Venmo. Request. Elena requests $200. Memo. Mark, please. My card isn't working. We are stranded. Stop being a psycho. I declined the request. I walked to the front door and engaged the deadbolt. Then I engaged the heavy security chain I had installed when we moved in. The one she hated because it was ugly. I went to the kitchen, made a sandwich, and opened a beer. At 10:45 p.m., I heard the elevator ding. I heard footsteps. Heavy, angry footsteps. And then, the sound of someone tripping over a plastic bag. What the F? Julian's voice. Then Elena's voice. My clothes. Is this my stuff? Mark. She pounded on the door. Mark. Open this door right now. This isn't funny. I didn't move. I sat on the couch, watching the TV. Mark. I know you're in there. The Wi-Fi is down. My card didn't work. Julian had to call his mom to pay for the Uber. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? Humiliating. That was the word. I walked to the door. I didn't open it. I spoke through the wood. You have your stuff, Elena, I said. You have Julian. And you have the aesthetic. You don't have an apartment anymore. My name is on the lease. You're not listed as a tenant. You can't do this, she screamed. She was definitely crying now. Real tears. Panic tears. Where am I supposed to go? Go to Julian's, I said. He's a visionary. I'm sure he has a vision for where you're sleeping tonight. He lives on a couch, Mark. He doesn't have a room. Sounds like a logistics problem, I said. Good night, Elena. I walked back to the bedroom, put in my noise-canceling earplugs, and turned off the light. She pounded for another 20 minutes. Eventually, I heard the elevator ding again, followed by the sound of dragging plastic bags. I slept like a baby. The first month of silence was the loudest month of my life. I didn't hear from Elena directly, at least, not in a way that required a response. I had locked down my digital perimeter. Number changed. Socials private. Email filters set to send anything with her name directly to a folder marked trash. But the silence wasn't empty. It was filled with the frantic, scratching sounds of someone realizing the walls were closing in. It started with the flying monkeys. Mutual friends, mostly hers, some who I thought were mine, reaching out to check in. Hey Mark, just heard what happened. That's crazy. Elena is really hurting, man. She's staying at a motel. Do you think maybe you guys could talk? Block. Mark, you can't just ghost someone you lived with. She needs her birth certificate. She had her birth certificate. I put it in the box labeled important, which was the first bag I put in the hallway. Block. Mark, Julian is being really weird with her. I'm worried. Call me. That one gave me pause. But I remembered the smirk on Julian's face when I was told to move out of the frame. I remembered Elena's dismissal. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Block. Once the noise stopped, the clarity set in. And the first place I saw that clarity was, ironically, my bank account. I had always known Elena was expensive. I hadn't realized she was a financial hemorrhage. 30 days after the breakup, I sat down to do my monthly budget. I stared at the spreadsheet. Without her supplementary expenses, the daily $18 salads, the aesthetic coffees, the Sephora hauls, the investment pieces for her wardrobe, the weekend trips for content, my savings rate hadn't just doubled. It had quadrupled. I wasn't just breaking even anymore. I was banking nearly $3,000 a month that used to vanish into the void of her brand. I upgraded my gym membership to the tier with the sauna. I bought a new espresso machine, a nice, industrial-looking chrome one that Elena would have hated because it looked too masculine. I started dressing better, not for an aesthetic, but for myself. I felt lighter. I slept 8 hours a night. The low-level anxiety that used to hum in the back of my skull, the fear that I was boring, that I wasn't enough, that I was holding her back, evaporated. I wasn't holding her back. I was holding her up. And now that I had let go, gravity was doing its job. 3 months passed. I was at a coffee shop near my office, reading a book, when I ran into Sarah. Sarah was one of the few friends of Elena's who had a real job, nursing, and had always treated me with respect. I tried to duck behind my book, but she saw me. "Mark." I lowered the book. "Hey, Sarah." She looked at me, surprised. "Wow, you look great." "I feel great. How are you?" She hesitated, shifting her weight. "I'm good. Busy." She paused, then lowered her voice. "I'm not going to give you a speech, Mark. I know you blocked everyone. I get it. Honestly, I would have done the same thing." I nodded, appreciating the lack of guilt tripping. "Thanks. But you should know," she said, biting her lip. "Karma is real." And it came fast. I took a sip of my coffee. "Oh, Julian," she said, the name dripping with disdain. "He's a nightmare." They moved into a studio apartment in the garment district because it was all they could afford. "It has no windows, Mark. It's a basement unit." I fought the urge to smile. "No natural light. Elena's kryptonite." "And the aesthetic?" I asked. Sarah snorted. "Dead." Julian convinced her that her old brand was too commercial. He's trying to rebrand her as some sort of gritty, avant-garde artist. He makes her wear oversized, thrifted clothes that smell like mothballs. He manages her account now. He posts these blurry, black and white photos of, like, cigarette butts and cracked pavement. "Let me guess," I said. "Her followers hate it." "She lost 10,000 followers in 2 months, Sarah said. "The brand's dropped her. She's not an influencer anymore, Mark. She's Julian's assistant. She's working double shifts at a diner to pay for his film developing costs because he refuses to get a capitalist slave job." I looked out the window at the sunny street. I thought about the girl who sneered at me for ruining a photo. I thought about the entitlement. "She cries a lot," Sarah added quietly. "She told me she didn't realize how much you did until the electricity got cut off last week." "She didn't miss me," I said firmly. "She missed the electricity." Sarah looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Yeah, you're probably right." I walked away from that conversation feeling bulletproof. I continued to thrive. I got a promotion at work, senior logistics manager. It came with a raise and a transfer to the downtown branch. I started looking for a condo, a place I owned. No renting, no roommates. I was viewing a unit, a sleek, modern loft with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. It wasn't a text. It was a voicemail, from a blocked number. I usually deleted them without listening, but something made me pause. I stood on the balcony of what was about to be my new home, looking out at the city lights, and I pressed play. "Mark? It's me. I know you blocked me. I'm calling from a payphone. Are those even a thing anymore?" God. A wet, jagged inhale. She was crying, but it wasn't the tantrum crying of the vineyard. It sounded exhausted. Broken. "I made a mistake. A huge mistake. He's crazy, Mark. He sold my camera. He sold the camera you bought me. He said we needed the money for art supplies, but I think I don't know." She sniffled. "I miss you. I miss us. I miss feeling safe. I'm at the Starbucks on 4th and Main. I don't have anywhere to go tonight. Please, just come talk to me. Just 5 minutes. I just need to see a friendly face. Please." The message ended. I looked at the phone. The Starbucks on 4th and Main was 3 blocks from where I was standing. I could walk there in 5 minutes. I could go save her. I could be the hero. I could swoop in, pay for a hotel, and listen to her apologize. I looked at the view of the city. I looked at the sold sign the realtor was holding in the other room. I wasn't the hero of her story anymore. I was the protagonist of mine. But I knew I had to end this. If I didn't, she would keep calling from payphones and borrowing phones until the end of time. I needed to close the loop. I needed to look her in the eye one last time. Not to save her, but to make sure she understood that the door was welded shut. I walked back into the living room. I'll take the condo, I told the realtor. I can sign the papers tomorrow. Great, she beamed. Do you have any other appointments today? Just one, I said, checking my watch. I have to go take out the trash. The Starbucks on 4th and Main was brightly lit, a fishbowl of fluorescent glare exposing everything inside. I saw her before I even opened the door. She was sitting at a small round table in the corner, staring into a cup of water. Not a latte, not a refresher. Free tap water in a plastic cup. The visual shock hit me harder than I expected. The Elena I knew, the Elena of 3 months ago, would never have left the house without a full face of no makeup, hair blown out, and an outfit coordinate to look effortlessly chic. The woman in the corner looked like a rough draft. Her roots were grown out, a stark, dark band against the fading blonde. She was wearing an oversized, shapeless gray sweater that I recognized as one of mine. She must have dug out of the trash bags I left in the hallway. It was stained. Her nails, usually impeccable acrylic claws, were bare and bitten down. She looked tired. Not sleepy girl aesthetic tired. Real, poverty-level exhaustion. I walked in. The bell above the door chimed. She looked up. When she saw me, her face crumbled. It was a mix of relief and shame that contorted her features into something painful to watch. Mark, she breathed. She stood up, knocking the table with her hip. Water sloshed over the rim of the cup. She moved to hug me. I didn't step forward. I didn't open my arms. I stayed exactly where I was, just inside the door, creating a wall of invisible glass between us. She stopped, sensing the temperature drop. Her arms fell to her sides. You came, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't think you would. I was in the neighborhood, I said. My voice was calm, conversational. Closing on a condo. Her eyes widened. A condo? You bought a place. Downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Great light. The irony landed. She flinched. That sounds amazing. You always wanted that. I did, I said. So you called. You have 5 minutes. She swallowed hard, looking around to see if anyone was watching. Mark, please. Can we sit? People are staring. Let them stare, I said. I thought you liked an audience. She looked down at her scuffed boots. Don't be cruel. Please. I know I deserve it, but I'm drowning, Mark. Julian he's a monster. He gaslit me. He used me for the apartment, for the money. He even pawned my jewelry. He sounds like a bad investment, I said. He was a mistake. She stepped closer, her eyes desperate, searching mine for a flicker of the man who used to pay her rent. I was confused. I got caught up in the hype. But losing you, it woke me up. I miss us. I miss Sunday mornings. I miss you cooking. I miss having a partner who actually cares about me. She reached out and touched my arm. Her hand felt cold. I can fix this, she whispered. I've changed. I'm done with the influencer stuff. I just want to be with you. We can start over. I can move into the new place, and I'll get a real job, and I looked at her hand on my sleeve. The sleeve of a tailored cashmere coat she had never seen before. I gently, but firmly, removed her hand. No, I said. Mark, Elena, stop. I looked her in the eye. You don't miss me. You miss the safety. You miss the infrastructure. You burned the bridge, and now that you're cold, you want to come back to the fire. That's not love. That's survival. It is love, she insisted, tears spilling over now, cutting tracks through the grime on her cheeks. We looked so good together, Mark. We were a team. We fit. I laughed. It was a short, dry sound. We fit. I repeated. I took a half step back, looking her up and down, mirroring the exact way she had looked at me at the winery. I let my gaze linger on the stained sweater, the messy hair, the desperate posture. Look at us, Elena, I said softly. I gestured to myself, clean, successful, calm. Then I gestured to her, chaotic, broken, frantic. I'm moving into a new phase of my life, I said, using the words she had once used to justify Julian. I'm curating a life of peace, stability, integrity. I leaned in closer, dropping my voice so only she could hear the final edit. And to be honest, you just don't fit the aesthetic anymore. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The echo of her own superficial cruelty bounced back and hit her square in the chest. She stood there, stunned, realizing that the weapon she had used against me had been turned around. Mark, she whispered, horrified. Good luck, Elena, I said. I hear the diner is hiring for the night shift. I turned around. Mark, You can't just leave me here, she shrieked, her voice rising to that familiar, demanding pitch. I have nowhere to go. Mark. I pushed open the door and stepped out into the cool evening air. I didn't look back. Not at the window. Not at her reflection in the glass. I walked down the street toward my new life, and for the first time in 3 years, the picture was perfect. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.